In this video, I want to share with you a few days in my life, resetting and setting up structures to hold me as we approach the beginning of winter. I live with a chronic illness and we all live complicated lives that occasionally require us to do more than we comfortably can. And it's not a bad thing to lean on certain habits to survive during hectic seasons. But as we move into winter, I know that my summer habits, while necessary at the time, are unsustainable. In order to move forward, I need not to be in an energy deficit. I need not to be so stressed and wired. I want my body to be healthy and my brain to be functioning at its best. So I'm pressing reset on my nervous system, which for the purposes of this video means intentionally detoxing from habits that got me through this year, thanking them for their service, but knowing I need different things going forward. If this sounds like something you vibe with or also might need, please sit back and enjoy. This year I really broke up my year by seasons and I found it very useful. I learned from the book Burnout by Emily and Amelia Nagoski, which is like one of my sacred texts, that we burn out when our goals are too big and too vague and too Sisyphusian and involve us putting in loads of effort over a long period of time without getting any sort of gratification. So if your goals are big, vague, philosophical things or general life things, it can often be a lifetime of work. And a lot of these things don't have clear goalposts or finish lines either, so even if you did achieve them, there may not be a singular moment when you get to like pat yourself on the back. In the past, when I've put routines in place, the goal has always been to have them in place indefinitely or like forever, and I ended up being so overwhelmed. Plus I felt like I had to be doing everything, covering all the bases at the same time, and then I ended up doing absolutely none of it ever because of all the overwhelm. But this year I have like finally cracked my own personal code, which is to think of everything in seasons. So spring and summer of this year for me had a lot of good in it, but was ultimately a very deeply chaotic and scary time in a lot of ways, and was mostly about survival, pushing through and jump-starting some things. I took on a million things and stretched myself very thin, but that was what I needed in that moment. I said in a video at the time that I didn't think I could handle finding peace, so I decided instead to balance bad chaos with good chaos. But in order to do that, to start being creative again and to get work and study and learn 2 languages and make friends and put myself out there and have experiences, I had to use some short-term shortcuts. Things like avoiding uncomfortable feelings. Things like days of living exclusively on caffeine and sugar so that my energy doesn't drop and I can get everything done. The thing about living with a chronic illness is that it makes you an expert in listening to your body, and it also makes you an expert in not listening to your body. Because sometimes your sheer willpower has to just overcome biology. But obviously one can only do this for a very short period of time before there starts to be like major ramifications. I made a call for how to survive these last months of life. And I did it, and there was lots of marvelous fun amidst everything else. And I did it as I always do, with a great deal of style. Brackets, one of my autumn habits that I'm forming is speaking very highly of myself to myself, to balance whatever the fuck was happening in my internal monologue before, which was not cute. One cannot have peace while self-reprimanding and self-deprecating. Citation, Nanette. But I digress. So now I'm giving myself the roses. And now commences a new season which necessarily must contradict the last. I've been using food and drink and any mental trickery I could come up with to sort of keep me in the air these past months. And now I sort of need to come down to earth, collapse a little, recalibrate, and sort of rebuild in a more sustainable way. The first habits I'm bringing into this autumn and winter period are those things that are totally obvious but not always easy to stay consistent at. Stretching my body, getting into the habit of doing meditations. My health is a bit of a tightrope walk lately, and it's been hard sometimes to do even basic things. But if I've learned anything, it's that our bodies heal faster and better when our minds and nervous systems are calm. So the kids on the internet lately have been talking about this thing called, I think, dinosauring is what they're calling it. Basically the idea is that most people, when they think they need more greens in their diet or they're lacking something, they try to change the entire diet. They try to like change their meals and eat these like really elaborate healthy meals all the time, when really if you're lacking greens and you don't have the mental space to learn how to cook food that naturally has more spinach in it, you can just like eat spinach, hate it, but just like put it in your body like a supplement and then eat your normal meal. And that's kind of the level at which I'm like trying to realistically bring things into my life. Like I know that I probably won't do a 7-step morning routine, but what is the equivalent of shoving spinach in my mouth that I can do to like keep myself grounded and moving forward? Anyway, all this to say, Vagal reset exercises are like, I feel like the nervous system equivalent of shoving spinach into your mouth. They are so easy and so fast, and they do so much. It's a factory reset button. It's incredible.
And all we're gonna do is very simply move our eyes to one side while keeping our heads in the center. And we're just gonna stay here for about 30 seconds. Go ahead and just let your eyes come back to the middle. And we'll stay here for about 30 seconds.
I just feel like chilled out now. Anyway, now you know. One thing I've been doing pretty consistently is morning pages. For the past few months, there were a lot of tricky feelings and thoughts that would arise either at night or in the morning, making it difficult to start my day. And ignoring them didn't quite have the elegant effect I had hoped for, but writing them down really does work. Stream of consciousness. The first time I tried morning pages was when I did the artist sway like 2 years ago, and I had planned to start on New Year's Day with my friend Veronica. There's like a video series about it, and a very close loved one died on New Year's Eve, but I went ahead and I did it anyway as I planned. And I remember thinking at the time, kind of making the joke to myself, that they could have been called morning pages with a M-O-U or N-I-N-G. But I remember thinking that in an overwhelming time, it was a godsend that I'd accidentally already committed to the habit of processing my thoughts, because otherwise I may not have known what to do with them. I'm also trying to get physically stronger this winter, which, if you know anything about the condition MECFS, you'll know is ambitious. I'm working with a cardiologist and lung specialist, and I have a program of rehab exercises that I do in the gym 4 times a week. The rule I've set for myself is that I can take things on, like work and studying and writing and language learning and video making, but the second I find myself on a Wednesday morning skipping the gym for lack of energy, everything stops until I get back there. Because of all of these habits, that's the one that's going to keep me out of the hospital with my 6th pneumonia infection of the year or whatever. The exercises are by their very nature not too strenuous, but the planning requires some effort. So as part of my reset week, I sat down and planned a month of workouts. So the next part of this reset, if you will indulge me, is my hair. Last year I had pneumonia like 5 times and I lost a lot of hair. It thinned out a lot, and now it's growing back very thick. I'll show you the whole thing. So my hair is a very weird texture at the moment. Also, the summer, the humid Barcelona summer, was not kind to my hair. My natural hair color is a sort of red. It's like red but not particularly pigmented, and I often get little highlights in it, kind of subtle, so that it's still like fundamentally my natural color, like all around my face and everything, but then there's just some dimension. This summer, however, this summer I went to get those highlights done, same ones I get every summer. There was miscommunication, but she actually gave me like a full head of highlights, like changing my entire hair color. And I'm not against being blonde. I think I've been blonde before. I've had bleached hair. I think it suited me well. But this color is the worst hair color I've ever had. Right now it doesn't look as awful because of the light, but in daylight it's like very yellow. Even when it's really soft, it looks unhealthy. The second I saw it in the hairdresser, like I did the thing where you're like, oh, I love it, because you're polite. In my mind I was like, oh, I look a bazillion times worse because of the color theory. Like I think it just zapped all the life out of my face. I'm pretty sure what I want to do is get a dark gingery color. I've dyed my hair darker, like a dark auburny red before, and it looked really good. I think having darker hair sometimes, especially as a pale sort of fair person, it makes you look more dramatic. It makes you just look more like high contrast and more like awakened or present, which is a feeling I want to have. And also it makes your hair look thicker. And then I think as it grows out, even though my natural hair color is probably lighter, I think if I do like a semi-permanent, it'll fade as it's growing out. I've done that before, and it kind of ended up blending with my roots color. The hair dye is in. So anyway, now we're Chapel Roan Rita Hayworth red. It's entirely related to the themes of nervous system recalibration, because sometimes it's fun to have an external, superficial part of a reset, just so you sort of feel outwardly and inwardly like you're the master of your own destiny. So I basically spent the summer eating and drinking anything that would keep me going and living on a lot of caffeine and sugar highs. And my go-to healthy meals have been repeated so intensely that I actually feel nauseous thinking about them. So one of the habits that I'm trying to start again is cooking for myself. Part of the great crash out of 2025 was a breakup and I don't want to talk about it too much, but one thing I will say is when you live with someone, you put such a bit bigger stock on like meal times and eating and cooking. I haven't really been having dinner. I've just been like eating stuff when I'm hungry, but I haven't like been making myself dinner in the evening in like a nice way. I'm just really not being very French about it, and that's not good. One should always be French by dinner times. One of the other things is that I cannot stress the importance of finding daylight in winter. I'm thinking about spaciousness a lot recently. In summer I was cramming so much in and spreading myself so thin. I would say that for a lot of this year I felt like I was in a rush for various reasons. Spent a lot of time in my apartment or a cafe or the gym working on things and pushing myself. And there wasn't spaciousness around my energy. I didn't go to bed with excess energy. Feeling like I'm not in a rush, like there is time and space to just go and get some daylight, touch some grass, take in the world around me. That's literally life. That's what life is, and it's so essential. And I think often when it comes to, I talked about this in a video recently, like when it comes to self-care, when we go to start taking care of our minds and our bodies and our nervous systems, we often focus on like another thing to add to our checklist, like have the yoga routine, have the meditation routine, all of which is so important. But just being able to like live life and mosey around and be a human being on the earth is like so much of the work, so much of the battle is won that way. So the last part of my autumn reset is focused on expanding my attention span and de-rotting my brain. I've been so sort of stressed and wired this year that I've read barely any full books, and I haven't even really been reading articles. I feel like this is so obvious, but just to reiterate, this whole video and this whole season for me is really about resetting my nervous system and detoxing from a lot of the things that I've been using to keep me going, but which only exhaust me in the long run. And I think that this is a kind of a chicken and egg part. Like, in order to focus, we need to be calm to a certain extent. Social media like sugar and caffeine can be a great way to stimulate your brain in a slump, but after a while, it too makes you lethargic and nauseous. So since starting my days with morning pages and like reading a few pages, my whole brain has felt so much better. The truth is, even though you would think that after like a reset week, you feel like, I'm back on track, I have my life together, I actually feel like pretty bad because I am detoxing from a lot of the things that I've been using to keep myself going. And I am sacrificing short-term being able to feel productive or whatever for long-term stability and foundations. So the ending result isn't like, woohoo, look at me. The feeling of being on track can be very seductive, and sometimes I find that it's actually the time I'm being most productive or useful or whatever, like when I'm making the best use of my time is often not when it feels like I'm running around the place being super high functioning. It's often like when I'm being more steady and thoughtful. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. It was a bit of a technical one, but I thought I would share just in case anyone finds it helpful. The next video will be more fun and silly.